I began to realize, oh, wait a second. I don't have to listen to every thought in my brain. That was a light bulb moment. I can choose a different thought. Wow, that's life-changing. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Honeycast. Today, I'm talking about a topic that I think a lot of you can relate to, and it's called emotional eating. I want to share with you my journey and also how I help my clients overcome emotional eating. I will have to say this, it takes time. This is not one of those practice, a simple tool for a little bit, although I do have tools. It is more of a day in, day out, practicing, reminding yourself the truth. And when it comes to emotional eating, the reason why we eat emotionally is because it makes us feel better. It makes us feel better temporarily, but it normally doesn't last. And that's the thing that is so frustrating, because when you're in the middle of that and maybe you just kind of wake up in the middle of it and you're eating something and you're not really hungry and you're just trying to feel better and you don't even really know what's wrong. And then you get to the end of whatever you just ate and the euphoria or the dopamine hit lasts for 20 minutes. And then you're left with that empty feeling or that feeling of regret. So how do you feel when you are in regret? When I'm feeling regret, a lot of times I'm just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Who cares? I might as well eat this and then eat that and then do this and then do that. And then 3 days later, I'm feeling terrible physically. I am not anywhere closer to my goals. I'm feeling regret. And it just feels, it's a negative cycle to be in. And then I'm frustrated. And then I'm discouraged, I guess is a better word. And so when I started learning about this, I actually started learning about this from another coach a long time ago. And I wouldn't have considered myself a habitual emotional eater, but what I did notice was that sometimes when I was eating, I was bored or it was not time to eat. Maybe I wasn't even hungry. And I would kind of wake up in the middle of that going, okay, wait a minute. Why am I grabbing this handful of tortilla chips? Why am I grabbing this handful of nuts? Why am I doing this? And I began just to become aware. And so that is step one, is just become aware when I am eating to feel better. Because my brain is wanting a dopamine hit. That's basically because I'm never like overeating or emotionally eating with chicken or salmon or green beans, right? It's always something that's concentrated that's going to give us that dopamine hit, which isn't serving us in any realm, especially when we're talking about blood sugar, especially if you're in weight loss mode. So it's really becoming aware of, what are you feeling right now? What is your brain telling you? Slowing it way down, which is really hard sometimes. That's a hard practice to begin. And it's also not fun, right? Because you're getting clued in on some thoughts that you're thinking that you're like, ooh, I might not like that thought, or especially if you judge yourself. And that's one thing that I want to say that I learned early on, is to not judge myself. No matter what, I am not going to judge myself, because when we judge ourselves, we bring in punishment. We bring in shame. We bring in that cycle where it's not going to serve you to punish yourself. I tried to punish myself to health, to lose weight, I did that for a lot of years. It doesn't work. It actually works against us. But if I can take a look at my thought and I can just look at it for what it is, it doesn't even necessarily mean that it's my thought. Do you know our thoughts come from a lot of different places? And when I accepted that some of these thoughts were pretty, I'm not going to say nasty. That's probably not the right word, although we all have nasty thoughts. I will say that. But what I'll say is, I didn't really want to have those thoughts. I made it mean something bad about me. And then when I made it mean something bad about me, then I was bad and I wasn't valuable and all the things which didn't serve me. So I really just practiced being curious, That really helped me just be curious. Why would I be thinking that? Where's this thought coming from? Like an investigator, just there, just watching, but not really naming it, not really saying, whether this is good or bad or ugly, but becoming aware of those thoughts. And even practicing that, they still were there. I was still probably acting on that behavior, but just slowing it down and listening to what my thoughts were telling me, I began to realize, oh, wait a second. I don't have to listen to every thought in my brain. That was a light bulb moment. I can choose a different thought. Wow, that's life-changing. And so I began practicing letting that thought be there and just float on by. That thought's just going to float on by. And I'm going to choose a different thought, a helpful thought, maybe a neutral thought. And as I begin to do that, I begin to realize that, and this was the thought that I started using, food will not fix this. This problem is going to be there whether I put something in my mouth or not. And if I do put something in my mouth, I'm probably going to have another problem. And so I began to tell myself, this food will not fix this. What do I need to do? And what I learned is I really did not want to feel any negative emotion whatsoever in my life. And I think we're all like that. We're prone to seek pleasure and avoid pain, which is a very primitive brain. And that's the way God made our brains. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, I was pain avoidant just constantly. Part of that was a lot of childhood trauma. Part of that, a little bit of personality. I think there's some personalities that are a little bit more pain avoidant, and just my lack of training in this area, lack of training my mind. And so with that, I began to coach myself in the moment. First of all, I set up guidelines for myself. I am only eating at the times that I decide I'm eating. It's my protocol. It's my plan, right? I'm going to eat breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner. That's what I'm doing. So I set a plan. And then during the day, if something came up and I'm wanting to eat and get rid of whatever emotion I started to feel, I would say, is it time for me to eat right now? It's not. So I'm not going to answer that urge. Food is not going to fix this. What else can I do to take care of this emotion right now? And I would just start saying, this is just an emotion. That's all. It's just an emotion, and it's actually going to pass. In the next podcast, I'm going to talk to you about and teach you how to experience negative emotion. That's another big key factor. But for this podcast, I really want to focus on becoming aware of the thoughts, self-coaching yourself, play it forward. Is this food going to help fix this issue, or is it going to make it worse or another issue worse? And practice allowing that emotion to be, it's just an emotion. And I don't have to do anything about it right now, but I can, and I have some tools. But for now, I'm just going to let this be there, and I'm not going to answer it with food. One thing I will say, resisting food or resisting using the no doesn't work well, because our brain begins to focus on that and then we end up doing it anyway. So when I say allowing that urge to be there, I'm not saying telling myself no. That doesn't work. What I say is, Chris, you can have this. You can totally have this, whatever it is that you want, but it is not going to fix your emotions right now. And you know what? Sometimes I don't do it anymore, which is wonderful. I love that I've been able to overcome this. But in the past, sometimes I would just go ahead and eat it. I'm like, I don't care. But then I had to deal with that thought. Well, do I really care? Yes, I do. That's what I tell myself. My brain's like, well, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. Who cares? That's really not a thought that's helpful to me, because I do care. I will care in about 30 minutes when this moment is over and I've gotten my dopamine hit and then I'm feeling all bad. Then I'm caring. I care when I get on the scale and the scale is not telling me what I want it to and how I feel in my body. A lot of times, those foods that we're indulging in are inflammatory foods. And when my body was younger, it could really kind of deal with that a little bit better. But in menopause, it is a stress on our body. We are already kind of a sitting duck for inflammation because of our hormones. Our hormones are walking out the door. Estrogen keeps cortisol intact. Estrogen helps with inflammation. And so a lot of times we are already kind of moving towards more inflammation. And when we continue to give our bodies the white sugar and the white flour and those processed oils that aren't good, it really causes even more inflammation. And so it's a little bit more detrimental to my body at this stage. And then also, dealing with the emotions is important because they're not going to go away if we're not processing them and dealing with them. They are stored in our body, and they can really wreak havoc. Those of you that have been in cycles of emotional eating or binging, it can really take us to places that aren't helpful. And so I like to start out with, let's just do a couple steps here. Let's become aware. Let's play it forward. Let's have some self-coaching time. Come up with something that you want to think instead and practice allowing an urge to be there. An urge is a temptation, and it's like a wave, and it comes in and it comes out and it moves on by. So I want to encourage you that if you are stuck in a cycle of emotional eating, you can get out of it. It is going to take time. Take some of these things that I've said and just start thinking about them. Start working on them. Take one thing, and maybe it's just, you're just going to be aware of what your brain is telling you. It's powerful to slow things down and to realize what your thoughts are. Our thoughts create our current results. And so if you aren't happy with your current result, you want to go back, you want to take a look at what your brain is telling you. You can change circumstances all day long, or sometimes we can't. And that doesn't change the result. But when you look at your thoughts and you change your thoughts, that can change the results that you're creating.